Hey everyone. So this meditation was recorded during a Meditative.dev live session, and it's intended to get the meditator more comfortable when working with phenomena in the visual field. It starts by working to relax the compulsive attentional movements that generally happen when we have our eyes open, which are related to visual saccades. After that, it moves into noting visual phenomena as they arise in experience. After this, we move to just noticing phenomena, and then finally, towards the end of the meditation, we do some reflecting on attention itself. So without further ado, let's get started. So for this meditation, I will invite you to turn so you're looking in a direction that's not at your screen, because that's actually going to help us. Just because looking at the screen, it's like kind of this object that will always strongly draw our attention there, usually at least because of the relationship we have with computers and what they offer us. So it's just a bit easier to do it without looking at it. So once you have your field of view, and it does not include your screen, you can just settle back into your meditation posture and mindset, and just take a few moments to relax before we go further. So just see if you can unload, unburden anything that's unneeded for what we'll be doing now in the present moment. Now the framing for this meditation, I would like you to establish the intention to work with the visual field. And so take a moment to do that. That is the sense gate we are working with today. Not mental imagery, but only what's in what we typically think of the external visual sense. As we are doing this, each time the mind heads to another sense gate, just like any other distraction, you can just gently but persistently bring it back to the external visual world again. We are going to have our eyes open for the duration of this meditation. So to start, we're going to spend a number of minutes just relaxedly letting the visual field present itself to us. You can use this time to explore how to relax, for example, with your eyes open, particularly if you generally meditate with your eyes closed. It can be sometimes a little bit challenging to establish meditation mode, so to speak, with your eyes open. So just see if you can sit in a place where you're in a meditative state of mind with your eyes open, being aware of the visual field and what it's presenting. Now, every time you might notice any tension in your experience related to something visual, I'd like you to just see if you can release that. And so, for example, this might include any attentional movement where you notice you're inspecting some feature in your visual field. And if you notice such attention shifts, which can manifest sometimes with a mild tension or grippiness, you might notice towards some visual element, just explore if you can release that tension again as soon as you notice it. So we're just letting visual experience happen. But each time we notice that we start to get a bit sucked into any particular part of that, we're just seeing if we can relax and release that away. This will help maintain a type of diffuse attention on the visual world. We're just continuing to let the visual information come in without analyzing it and releasing any time our attention is drawn to any particular visual stimuli. Letting things be as they are. If your eyes start defocusing at any point, that is also just fine. We're just equanimously observing what's happening in whatever form it takes. Doesn't need to be in focus per se. All right, good. Now we are going to, in the second half of this meditation, we're going to up our efforting just a little bit. So we're now going to allow our visual attention to move freely, yet still dispassionately, onto visual artifacts or features. And as we do this, we are going to use the note or label C, saying this word to ourselves each time that we notice that the mind is focusing on some particular visual feature. Initially, this type of practice can feel sometimes a little bit overwhelming because there are so many possible focal points. But just see if you can trust the process through a little bit. And just note C when you notice your attention has gone to a particular visual feature as best you can. Such features may be objects or shapes or edges, lines, corners, intersecting lines, patches of color, visual noise or snow, etc. Whatever it is that you visually tuned into, when you notice you've done that, just note C, and then do the same with the next thing you notice. If you feel that you have the concentration to do so, at this point I'll invite you to continue doing the same noticing exercise without the label or note C. Or if you prefer to just keep noting with the label, that's also completely fine. It just requires sometimes a bit more concentration to do it without the label. Notice as you continue to do this that it's not just the things that we're seeing, but there's also very much a focusing on the spaces between the things, whether in terms of depth or in other ways. So if you can, just notice that aspect of how visual information presents itself to us. Once you've spent a little bit of time on this spaces between objects aspect of things, you can just go back to noticing things in the visual field in general. As now, that aspect will just be a little bit more salient, usually. We'll take the last few minutes of this meditation to just notice, to sort of bring some attention to how attention actually shifts. So just seeing if we can catch when it's moved from one aspect or feature to another one. Just see to what extent you can tune into noticing when it moves, noticing when you visually shift. Although in some sense we perceive a fairly stable visual presentation, our eyes are actually moving around that whole time. It's just we don't actually perceive the way our eyes are moving around, all those micro movements from one feature to the next. However, if we can notice our attention shifting, we actually can notice when our eyes have moved from one thing to another. So it's just something interesting about this. It means that to some extent you can notice what in vision research they refer to as your saccades of your eyes, the movement of your eyes, even though you don't actually see it directly in a visual sense. All right, we're now going to bring this meditation to a close. Thank you for engaging in this visual exploration with me. And so, when you feel ready, you can open your eyes and redirect yourself to your screen, turn on your video, unmute yourselves, etc. when you feel ready and it feels appropriate.